Oh, I'm a bit high, aren't I? Okay, let's try that. We've got a little flea for joining us today. Let's see if we can put him over here. Okay, he's kind of rolling off. He doesn't want to be part of it. Will you stay there? I'll put him there. That's kind of cute. It looks like his butt is facing me. Oh well, just for this video, we're going to place him there because it's nice to have a bit of company. Otherwise, I'm just talking to myself, which doesn't feel sane. And now I have a floofer who's listening to me. Hello friends, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Kat, and I'm a filmmaker and journalist. As you can see today, I'm wearing something that is a little bit more formal than usual, ever so slightly. Not a huge fan of wearing very, formal attire, but today the situation calls for it because we're going to be talking about I'm going to be sharing with you today what I've experienced in the city and what I've heard from friends about how to get a job, whether you're looking for full-time, freelance, for part-time, or a contractor. So let's get straight to it. Number 1, talk to people. I found that the most important part of the beginning of a process of looking for a job is figuring out what it is that you want, and you don't know what you don't know. So the only way that you can do this is by talking to as many people as you can in the fields that you're interested in. I know that in schools usually as you're growing up, they do try to bring in people to talk about their careers, but very rarely do they touch upon more personal parts of it, like dress code, hours, pay, flexibility, the types of co-workers that you'll be working with, cultural fit, whether or not the company values mental health and physical health, all of these things. And the only way that you can really find this out is if you talk one-on-one with these people. When they come into a school and they're talking to a big crowd, they're probably not going to get into the details, and you want those details. Those are the things that are going to be affecting your everyday life. One of the things that's important. Can you hear that? Somebody's getting really angry on the road. One of the things that's really important to bring up if you're considering moving locations for a job is getting a feel of what that industry is like in that city. And I say feel because I want to include everything from pay to respect to attitude and a general understanding of what people think of this industry in the city. The same job in 2 different cities or countries could pay very differently, even if living expenses are similar. Maybe it's a super popular job and there's a lot of talent that you're competing with. So the best way to get an idea of this is to talk to a lot of people. Think about all the career paths that you're interested in and then reach out to whoever you know, whether it's a teacher, teacher's friend, friend's friend, relative's friend. You'll be surprised at how willing people are to give advice about their career paths, mistakes they've made, things they wish they avoided. I've had people reach out to me online and some of my friends, and I've reached out to plenty of people, and I've been so grateful for the amount of replies that I've received. Obviously there are people who don't reply, but there was a producer who worked in Hong Kong, and even though he couldn't directly help me with finding a job, he was willing to go on a video call with me just to explain what his day-to-day life is like as a producer at the big company that he worked at, and I was so grateful for that. And that's only one out of the many people who have been kind enough to respond. And I remember there was this other lady who also talked to me a lot. She was quite literally happy to hop on a call with me after, we chatted a little bit. She walked me through what her experience and career path has been like, and the only thing that she asked in return is that the people that she helps and gives advice to pass that on and do that to other people too. And I think that's such a kind way of looking at it. So when you're talking to these people, ask about their day-to-day lives, things like whether or not it includes long work hours, whether or not a dress code is something that you're comfortable with. Do they communicate with a lot of clients, or is it a job where you don't really need to socialize? Is it more admin, paperwork, or is it more physical work? Does it include a lot of travel? And quite importantly, maybe even most importantly, even though it might be uncomfortable, you should definitely bring up the financial side of it, because you want to know what you're getting yourself into before you put in all this time and effort into getting the job or getting the interview. And you don't want it to be one of those situations where you get the interview and at the very final stage, you're so glad you got an offer, but then you find out that the pay is a third of what you expected, or even less. That is just sad. And specifically for Hong Kong, you should definitely talk to people about the salary. Obviously, you don't want to come across as a person who only cares about salary, but in this city, the path you take, the industry, how you're hired, whether your company is local or foreign, all of these things can greatly impact your salary. So definitely worth asking about. Not first thing that you talk about, but slip it in, somehow. Subtly. The British way. If you go for full-time because you want the stability and the benefits, there is one easier way to do this, and that kind of only works if you're still in school, which is get an internship. If you're going for one of those big companies, get yourself into an internship. I would say any internship, but the closer it is to the final job that you want and the final company that you want, the better. If you are able to do lots of internships, you're going to get closer to figuring out what you want, what sort of company culture you prefer, maybe even what industry you prefer. Most importantly, it will make the process of finding a job after you graduate a lot easier. Because say for example, you worked at company A as an intern whilst you were at university, and then you tell them that, hey, you really enjoyed this and you're looking for a job after you graduate, they are much more likely to consider hiring you because they know the way that you work and they know whether or not you're reliable. As opposed to, say, a separate company that's never even seen your name, has never worked with you, they don't know what your style is like, whether or not you're a lying, mean, terrible person, they don't know any of that. And for the company that you interned for, if they do happen to be looking for someone, it makes the process easier for them too, because they don't need to go through the whole thing of, making a post and then sifting through all the candidates, interviewing. That is all time saved on their end if they're able to hire someone that they already know. One thing to know about internships here in Hong Kong is that you'll most likely not be paid, which I don't agree with, but that's a separate ordeal entirely. If you're a local student or a Hong Kong resident, you may be eligible for graduate schemes. Some companies will have graduate schemes, and what they do is they pretty much funnel you up through the company. You apply, you take some tests and interviews during your final year of university. If you're accepted, you just go step by step up the ladder. But again, keep in mind that your salary may go up slower than if you were hired as an experienced professional. Of course, if you do want to be hired as an experienced professional, you kind of have to have some experience. So if you're able to sell your experience as well, then applying as an external applicant or outside of the graduate scheme might be a better choice for you. But if you are, a fresh graduate, then there is absolutely nothing wrong with going with a graduate scheme. It is safe, it is stable, and you usually get a taster around the different positions within the company, so there's more flexibility in figuring out what you like within that company. If you're not a fresh grad, then an internal transfer is probably the first thing that you should look at. Side note, if you're hired from abroad, it's very likely that you're going to get a better package. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. Okay, you'll see a lot of job application sites like, I think it's called CT Jobs. There will be stuff posted on LinkedIn, on Glassdoor, and then a couple of local ones. But I found the most success through word of mouth recommendations. And that usually comes from networking, because most people will end up getting their jobs through recommendations and not through job postings. If you're talking to people, as we mentioned in the very beginning, through platforms like LinkedIn, and they say, oh, my team just happens to be looking for someone, then hey, you can send over your portfolio, which you do need to have ready for the industry that you're looking at, and then they might get you in for a job. Maybe you've had a call with the person that you're talking to on LinkedIn and they like the sort of person that you are or the sort of person you come across as. They might be more likely to recommend you in for that job. Another way to get that recommendation is through doing your first degree or your master's degree or any sort of degree in this city, because a lot of the universities will have a careers counsellor in their department, and the careers counsellor is the person who will get those job postings first from their contacts within the industry, and this is usually before it even goes public on places like LinkedIn and Glassdoor, etc. And then they will send out these postings to the relevant students. And once the students find out about these jobs, they can immediately apply. This may not guarantee success, but it does increase the chances that your application will be viewed, which is already a huge deal, because think about the amount of applications that some companies receive online. You usually just end up getting buried. Either way, also, doing a degree in the city guarantees a work visa. It's temporary, but it definitely helps with looking for a job. You do have to graduate though, just saying. For part-time, contractor and freelancer jobs, it's easier if you have had a full-time. Why? Because especially with big corporations, they can look at the companies that you work for, maybe they know people at that company, they can ask them whether or not you're reliable, aka it's easier for them to trust you. They also won't need to waste time explaining the workflow of big organizations. If you're freelancing, then you have to network, not only online, but in person too. Socializing with people in your field will definitely help, because word of mouth here works better than anything. Once people give you a chance and work with you once and they like it, they will be much more likely to go back to you again and again. The important thing here is to be a nice person. Don't be mean. No one likes to work with someone who's mean or disrespectful. Be a nice person. Be a nice person. As a freelancer, you want to get into the good books of big companies. Why? Because many of them are often looking to outsource their workload. They get a lot of jobs, and sometimes the amount of people that they have hired full-time just can't cover it. And hiring freelancers is their way of handling that. It also doesn't give them any contractual obligations to keep people hired if, for example, the workload of the team goes lower. These big companies will always prefer to work with people that they've worked with before because they know what they're like with deadlines, they know the quality of their work. So you should either aim to get to know the people who are freelancers of these companies, because then if there is a gap to fill, they can bring your name up, or get to know the people who work in these big companies and hire freelancers, because then again, if they are looking to fill a gap, if someone is sick or on holiday or just super booked, they may turn to you. And if the company is trying to grow this section of their business, they may be trying to increase the names on their roster anyway. They will be looking at your website, your portfolio, all of that stuff, so you should have those ready. If they go onto your website and it's not up to date, or your contact information is not up to date, they will very quickly move on. Remember though, if you are freelancing, you will have to sort your visa situation yourself. And the same goes for contract jobs and part-time jobs. If you're interested in more information about visas, let me know, because then I can share what I've experienced and what has made things easier, harder, all that. Bonus fact! Okay, so I know that a lot of countries, cities may not value languages as much, but Hong Kong does. It's quite an international place, and a lot of the companies require you to communicate with people who are in other cities and countries, so you would definitely benefit from putting it on your resume and bringing it up. Most of the locals will know at least English and Cantonese at a pretty good level. It's very likely that they will know Mandarin as well. So if you know any of these languages, you should definitely put it on your resume. Even if it's not to a completely fluent level, if you're able to understand and speak it, but maybe not read or write, it's still better than not knowing it at all. Knowing more languages is always a bonus, especially if it's an Asian language. I've seen multiple postings that have asked for Korean and Japanese. I've actually seen some European languages too. I think it depends on where the company is from. For example, if it's an American company, they may not require the same languages as, say, if it's a French company. A French company will probably want French. If it's a German company, they'll probably want German. I digress. And this is especially true for news companies, because if you're reporting news, they probably want you to speak the language of the country that they're broadcasting the news to. It would be useful. They might even require you to understand the language of the country that they're doing the news about. I've been told before that it would be helpful to understand what Putin is saying in some interview that he's giving in Russia. I may not need to be in Russia, but understanding it is already very helpful. Bonus 2, keep improving yourself. Even if you're not on a job, get on a project, any project. Pick up a gig, go to a networking event, see a talk, teach yourself something, take classes if it's possible for you financially. If not, then self-teach something. All of this will improve your skills, make you a better candidate, and it could grow your network. Bonus 3, look forwards, not backwards. It's so easy to fall into the trap of kind of pitying yourself because you're applying to so much stuff, and when you start counting, it could add up to tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of applications, which seems very demotivating, and it is. But remember, a lot of the job postings online don't actually hire from online. They hire from word of mouth. So yes, you may have thrown out a lot of applications, but most of them may not even reach the recruiter. So don't be disheartened. It's important to understand that people are busy and you're not their main priority as much as we'd all like to be. It's the same as when you get a notification on your phone and in that moment you're too busy to reply, so you kind of swipe it aside, and then you completely forget about it until days, weeks, maybe even months later. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. I always remember what my teacher used to say, it only takes one yes. So keep at it. You can do it. As always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below and I will try my best to reply. And if there is anything else that you're interested in, again, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, click the notification bell, and give the video a like if you enjoyed it, it was helpful, or maybe you're just feeling super nice because you're a really nice person. Alright then, thank you so much for watching this video. As always, stay safe and healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye!